My name's Tony Morbin, Executive News Editor at ISMG, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar, The SBOM Imperative, India's Path to Achieving Digital and AI Sovereignty. Our subject matter expert today is Michael Khusid, Head of Product Management, HCLSoftware. The security risks of reliance on software and technology from foreign countries or unknown sources has driven global demand for digital sovereignty legislation, ensuring companies and countries' ability to control and govern their own digital infrastructure, data and technologies in alignment with its national laws, values and interests. Now, in addition to cloud services, the widespread use of LLMs has put AI sovereignty into the mix as an urgent requirement for companies and countries to prevent issues such as data leakage or potentially hostile intrusion. Both require an ability to spot and remove suspect or compromised code. A prerequisite is to close down this vulnerability and ensure compliance with regulations, and that is to know what your code is, whether it's an open source snippet or shadow AI models. You need to know what's running on your systems. And that includes by staff with remote access, as well as third-party suppliers and contractors. An SBOM, Software Bill of Materials, has consequently become an essential component for Indian organisations seeking to secure their AI deployment and ensure regulatory compliance. During today's webinar, we'll discuss how do companies approach and address issues around securing AI implementation, achieving compliance with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY, their stringent SBOM guidelines, CERT-In's escalating advisories, and the DPDP Act, why an on-premise SBOM solution is even more important in India, and how HCL AppScan 360-degree version 2.0 addresses India's unique regulatory landscape. Before we begin, for those of you unfamiliar with Information Security Media Group, we're a global education and intelligence firm with 30+ international media sites in vertical sectors such as bank info security, gov info security, and healthcare info security, with more than 1.8 million members registered to our sites. If you have questions for our speaker during the course of this session, please submit them via the chat window on your screen. And if you experience any technical issues while viewing today's webinar, please use the email address on your screen. Also, I do need to emphasize the content being presented in today's webinar is copyrighted material and is meant for today's session and individual study purposes only. So if your organization would like to use the information presented in today's session or looking for customized training or education, please contact us. Our sponsor, HCLSoftware, is a global leader in software innovation and the software division of HCL Tech. It develops, markets, sells and supports transformative solutions across various industries, including business and industry, intelligent operations, total experience, data, analytics and cybersecurity. HCL's commitment to customer success and core values of integrity, inclusion, value creation, people centricity and social responsibility drive them to deliver best-in-class software products that empower organizations to achieve their goals. With a rich heritage of pioneering spirit, HCLSoftware serves more than 20,000 organizations, including a majority of the Fortune 100 and almost half the Fortune 500. Now, back to our subject expert, Michael Khusid, Head of Product Management, HCLSoftware. Michael Khusid leads product management for HCL AppScan, leading the strategic direction of HCLSoftware's comprehensive application security portfolio, including the latest AI-based solutions. With over 2 decades of product management expertise in cybersecurity and enterprise software, Khusid brings extensive experience from leading technology companies. Before joining HCLSoftware, he served as Vice President of Products at Decoded, building their DevOps intelligence platform, and held senior product leadership roles at Contrast Security, VeraCode, and Zerto, later acquired by HPE. He holds a Master of Science in Management and Engineering from MIT Sloan School of Management. So, welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for the introduction.
Delighted to see you. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. Why has SBOM become a strategic imperative for Indian enterprises in 2025? And what are the biggest risks that Indian enterprises face that can be addressed by an SBOM strategy, particularly when it comes to implementing AI?
Well, the big change that happened this year because the requirements became quite stringent. And the goals of MeitY, the Minister of Electronics and Information Technology of India, was through the CERT-In program, was to strengthen cybersecurity and supply chain resilience, and also to enhance transparency and accountability for the software vendors, for the software, for the other companies who basically write software. And as a part of that requirement, it is imperative for Indian enterprises to share the SBOMs. So there are a couple of things that they will achieve there. Number one, there are standards for regulations and for procurement. And if the companies meet those standards, it's the SBOMs add the aspect of visibility, the transparency, and they help sign the contracts in a secure industry best practices consistent ways. And this aligns to India's broader push for secure and responsible digital infrastructure. Second part is promoting automation and standardization. Big part of MeitY is recommendation of SBOM generation tools and making those generations automated in a standardized formats, whether that's SPDX and Cyclone. By sharing those SBOMs in a machine-readable standard format, we get to scalability, we get automation, and we get to integration of the processes, and especially digital process, across Indian government and Indian enterprises. It facilitates compliance and license management for third-party components, for open source components, and this is a long conversation we can have in more details about why open source is so imperative and important as of 2025. And it also facilitates the shift left practices through the standards of automation, through the standards of complete exposure of SBOMs within the software development life cycle within the organization. And the outcome for that would be detection of vulnerabilities earlier, improving the security of the applications, and of course, reducing the time to remediate.
Okay, so we've now got compulsory standards to drive visibility. What are the main challenges that organizations face when it comes to implementing SBOMs across their software lifecycle and their AI implementation, including the specific challenges of meeting India's regulatory landscape?
Well, there are several challenges about implementing SBOMs, and SBOMs are not new. The enterprises knew about SBOMs for many years by now. There are standards implemented in other countries as well. But so far, the SBOMs were generated ad hoc. So the biggest challenge is the companies in India really have to become fully automated and generating SBOMs. And as part of that, we face integration complexity. So that means that you have to identify processes, how the software is developed. We have to document those processes, and we have to add SBOM generation into those processes. So that's one of those things. In terms of AI systems complicate because AI is still new. We have not fully automated AI. We do not fully know where the AI is used within applications. So the AI adds a whole layer of complexity, the whole level of potential risks in documenting the dependencies on applications and making it difficult to track vulnerabilities. We still have issues with standardization. So the format requires, the standards requires certain formats. And those formats are digital formats, machine-readable formats that have to be complied, and that enables exchanges of information. And last but not the least, as you know, people are still going to manage this mandate semi-manually, and that creates resource constraints and fragmentation of how it's implemented, whether it's consistent across all applications. So I think overall, if you follow the standard fully, it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, but ultimately the enterprises will meet those regulations and make their supply chain security better, make their customers happier, make their suppliers happier, and of course, comply with the government standards.
That sounds quite prescriptive. I mean, what does sovereign application security mean in the Indian context? I mean, presumably we're not talking about requiring total original code creation. Is it just control over code sourcing and use?
No, of course, open source is extremely persistent in modern applications. As a matter of fact, there was a study by the Linux Foundation, pretty recent study, and they showed that modern applications, 96% of modern applications are powered by open source. So open source is great. Open source is global, it's accessible, it increases business agility, it allows enterprises to innovate faster. But yes, to your point, absolutely, there needs to be control over open source in the applications, and the SBOMs help to remediate this issue by documenting what open source is where, and helps customers identify this open source, especially if this vulnerability identified in a popular open source libraries, which, as you know, happens quite often.
And the other complication, of course, is things like dependencies and so on. What role does AI play in vulnerability management, speeding up patching when you do find your code has a problem?
Well, AI has a lot of implications in our market right now in terms of vulnerability management. There is AI, which is offensive AI, the way how hackers use AI to attack the systems. And that's, of course, have added a significant amount of risk in the latest years. We're not here to talk about that, really. That's a topic for a different seminar. Same about defensive AI, how you use AI to defend your systems, to defend your operations and produce better guidance. Again, great topic for a different webinar. If you'd like to put comments, please put comments in it. We'll have a different webinar on this topic. For this particular webinar, we're going to talk about how AI caused a change in vulnerability landscape. So let me actually share some slides, if you don't mind, and that will help illustrate a point. So let's take a look at this slide. What you can see here is there's a graph of vulnerabilities in the past 20 or so years. And by the way, this graph is available only from us in this webinar, but you can put this graph together if you go to NVD database and just graph all vulnerabilities throughout last year. And what you see, there's a sharp spike in the last year in terms of number of vulnerabilities. So why did it happen? Well, one thing you can say is pandemic. It started in 2020. We had a period of massive digitalization, going to cloud. Workers had to do a lot of work remotely. So we can say that, okay, there was a transition here. And because of that, number of vulnerability increased. And we had to write a lot of code for people to work remotely, of course, right? But look after that. The pandemic is officially over, was declared over at the end of 2023, but in end of 2022 rather. But then going into 23 and 24, the number of new vulnerabilities per year have increased even faster. So what I postulate there, the reason for that is AI. And what AI did is created this influx of new vulnerabilities for several reasons. Number one is, what a vulnerability? A vulnerability is mistaken coding. People code faster during AI. They create the whole programs called snippets of code using AI. And when AI generates codes, its quality is average. It's trained on, all the code we have in the world. And the quality of that code is by definition average. The result, you get average code ingested in your systems. Number two is there are potentially new security effects you're not aware of. They can be done in the code itself, or they can be done by AI introducing new libraries. And AI, by the way, love to introduce new libraries. I think we got better about AI not hallucinating, creating, calling libraries which don't exist. But, there's definitely aspects of new libraries being introduced, and you need to be aware of what AI brings to systems. And lastly, the whole quality of code. Can AI produce better code than a human, or will senior developer produce code which was using AI, which is worse than the code they usually do? And by the way, there was another study which was done recently, and what that study showed is that people using AI for coding trust AI more than they trust their own code. Like if they were evaluating the same code in the code review, they would have marked it more negatively than they just accept the code generated by AI. So I hope that answers the question on the impact of AI, specifically in this space around coding, application security, vulnerability management, and SBOMs.
Quite a frightening graph there, yes. Now, where does DevSecOps process fit into the modern age of AI? What's their role and contribution?
The DevSecOps is a process which we're adopting rapidly, and that process requires automation. Really what AI did here, and especially with the graph you just saw, it underlined the point of automation for everything. Automation from the first line the code is written through mature applications. They have to be tested automatically, you have to build automatically, and they have to be tested for security automatically. So the automation mandate, and by the way, that's exactly what MeitY CERT-In process says. It says you have to automate. That's all it's about. That's all what we're talking about here. And that's why it's bringing into India this imperative that you have to automate everything.
So traditionally, we think of security as being a bit of a brake on innovation. How can DevSecOps teams integrate enhanced security into their DevSecOps operations without disrupting delivery timelines or impacting innovation?
Great question. For a while, the word on the street was shift left, and you've probably heard this word shift left. We're going to make developers aware of security. We make developers responsible for security. We're going to give them tools, and the code is going to be secure. It didn't happen. There is an article from one of the analyst firms, which was published recently, and which said shift left is dead. And I think there's definitely truth to that shift left has not achieved its purposes. It did not make software secure. You saw by number of vulnerabilities. It's definitely not the case right now. What he did is he taught developers about security. They know about the security tools. They know about security vulnerabilities, but it did not make secure code. So what DevSecOps does, it creates a foundational platform to be integrated in the processes from, as I was saying earlier, from the point the first line of code is written, from the first check-in for the application, through the iterative, mature changes in the foundation. It makes sure that the testing, security testing, is integrated, that you cannot bypass it. And if it fails, you fix problems very quickly, whether you use AI for that or whether you use security experts for that. That's already a detail. But the point is, again, automation of security testing in every stage of DevOps. And that's what creates DevSecOps, really.
I mean, you've gone some way there to answering my next question, because I was going to say, okay, we've bought into it. We're doing all the right things. So what does an audit-ready SBOM report look like under CERT-In guidelines?
Well, the most interesting thing about CERT-In guidelines, and that was passed in 2022, so that's not new, is a 6-hour reporting rule. And what it says is if you have a cybersecurity incident, you have to report to CERT-In within 6 hours of detection. So this is a very strict timeline. And we think about it, oh, well, if there was an incident, if somebody hacked into database. But now we're talking about vulnerabilities being exploited and potential vulnerabilities in code, vulnerabilities in AI, vulnerabilities to the supply chain being exploited. That also needs to be reported within 6 hours. And that's where the automation, and that's where the audit-ready SBOM comes into the picture. That if you know your packages, and let's say there was a good case study about Log4j, right? Log4j happened by now, 3-4 years ago, but we still used as a case study because there was a panic. There were teams working throughout the weekend, 24 hours a day, to identify where Log4j is in the environment. And of course, that's critical vulnerability, so you would have to do it within 6 hours. Back then, it was not possible. Right now, with the audit-ready SBOM, it's possible. You go look at all of your SBOMs. If you have full automation, you have full documentation, you go through the SBOMs, you find where the Log4j is, in which application, and you report it. You might not fix it. It might still require 24 hours working through the weekend to patch Log4j or similar vulnerability in your environment. So it doesn't change engineering job, as I said, shift left. Not quite shift left, you still have to do the work. But in terms of auditing, in terms of reporting in CERT-In, we're in a good shape now.
That's interesting because, obviously, it's been a while since Log4j, 4 years, and we've had, as you say, SBOMs have been around a while, and now complicated by the addition of AI, and yet people have been struggling all the way along. So how does HCLSoftware help its clients overcome these challenges and address India's SBOM and AppSec needs?
Yeah, so HCLSoftware has been helping clients to address these needs for the past number of years. HCLSoftware's AppScan product is 25 years old, and we've been very committed to help customers find vulnerabilities and resolve vulnerabilities over those 25 years. Now, with the SBOM standards and the aspect of sovereignty, digital sovereignty, we came up with a solution, which is a great platform. And what that platform does, it allows customers to automate the DevSecOps processes, to insert security tools AppScan tools, different tools, by the way, because you need different tools at different stages of line in the right stages of the DevOps processes, and of course, to generate SBOMs. What's most important here with the aspects of digital sovereignty is you don't want the data in the cloud. The data in the cloud can be potentially leaked and potentially be used to train AI, potentially used to train adversarial AI. So with this desire of Indian enterprises to have full control of the infrastructure, to have the data that they have encrypted with their own private keys, what we are announcing is AppScan 360 2.0. And that is a cloud-native on-prem platform, which can be run in a customer private environments, and that allows them to achieve a full automation of DevSecOps with all the security tooling, all the way from the beginning, from design stages to the SBOM stages later in the process.
So you're saying really, this is addressing the issue of needing your SBOM to be on premise.
We are, and that's of course the big challenge. There are other companies which might be delivering the service in the cloud, and that's great, but that requires the data, the customer data, potentially very sensitive data like source code, the list of their libraries in the open source libraries in the environment to be going to the cloud and potentially going across India borders to other countries. And that is a risk. That's itself is a risk by itself. And that's a risk that we're helping customers manage by keeping the data private, keeping the data in control, especially the vulnerability data, SBOM data, and enable very orderly generation of SBOMs and exchange of SBOMs within the enterprise controls.
Both a risk and out of compliance with regulations.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael, for sharing your insights and expertise today. And I also want to give our thanks to our sponsor, HCLSoftware. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to attend the session. I trust that today's discussion has provided some useful data points to enable your organisation to address the SBOM imperative, India's path to achieving digital and AI sovereignty. We hope to see you again at one of our upcoming events. For Information Security Media Group, I'm Tony Morbin, and thanks once again, Mike.